What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Thursday, April 4th. All right, you guys, Palantir stock today, about flat, down about 2 cents a share, minus 0.09%. Big day, big test today, and we have a lot to talk about here, so let's get into it. We're going to pull out as much bias as we can, utilizing things like the volume profile, the areas that I think we're going to see a lot of trader decisions happening, exactly like we ended up getting here today, the directional bias out of the chain, and finally, the expected move. So let's take a look here, starting with our volume profile here on the 5-minute chart. Listen, guys, I know a lot of you guys are Palantir stock fans. Starting tomorrow, okay, this is Thursday, starting Thursday, Palantir will be a daily upload. Well, five days, every day the market's open, Palantir will be an upload, and it's going to come out at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time sharp. That's an hour and a half after the market closes, no matter where you are in the world. So if you're a big Palantir fan, I encourage you to just check the channel. That's probably your best bet, considering I upload quite a few videos. It's not always a guarantee that you'll actually get a notification. You likely will a lot of the time, but it's not a guarantee. YouTube only sends out so many. But if you want to see Palantir, it's hitting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time every single day the market's open, sharp. And that starts tomorrow, okay? Hope you guys appreciate that. Let me know if this is something you want to see every day. For now, it's in the plans. I'm covering Palantir every day. This is one of my favorite companies of all time. And by the way, not only a great, at least, for me, I think a good company that I want to own, but it's a great stock to trade. So let's take a look here. The primary moves that I'm interested in here for the volume profile analysis here today, that kind of volatile pump that we got off the open, and then this drop and recovery, and then quick fade on that last candle into the close. So if we take a look here, let's see if we can pull anything out. We did get that contextual fade off the open. We got a couple of pops in volume, but we're getting at it from both sides. And then we get a little bit of, out of context green volume, but it gets matched with, on the red side as well. We get a pop in red volume. Listen, for me, if you're going to twist my arm, I'd say sure. There's a very small bullish bias, but not nearly enough for me to actually label it as such. So I'm going to go ahead and say there's nothing on the move up to 23 today that we can really pull out. Heading into the close, we saw high volume on the close. We met or exceeded, on the two bars surrounding the closing bell, the open. But other than that, it kind of just offsets each other. So it's really interesting. We're seeing very little. I mean, there is bias in certain places, but it just gets offset by the other side in any case today. Which, I mean, again, if you're a bull, today was flat. So do you really want a ton of bullish bias on a day that's flat where the bulls can't get anything going? Just get rejected, right? And if you're a bear, there's really no bearish bias. At least that doesn't get offset. But again, it's a flat day, right? So do you really want that? You have to ask yourself that. It would show weakness. Weakness out of the buyers and weakness out of the sellers if we did see any form of massive bias here today. So let's move on to the 30-minute chart where we can start pulling out our psychological levels that I want to watch here tomorrow, really every day. Okay, so we covered Palantir last night. Again, Palantir will be becoming a daily upload, so I hope you guys are excited for that. But we covered it last night. And if you remember, here on the 30-minute, we barely retook the 50 period, that white line, into the close. And you guys, I said, that's not enough for me. Well, today we got a high volume break back upside after fading below in the very low volume pre-market. That's fine. The high volume break upside is great to see. We then sort of got a retest and then a high volume hold into the close. It was it wasn't really a clean retest. It was a little bit sloppy. We didn't have a lot of time to prove it. So listen, the truth is, while it is a break and sort of a hold, I'm not completely satisfied with that. What I really would love to see is another test, since we're basically riding it anyway, tomorrow, and a high volume push upside, and really potentially look to use that 50 period here on the 30-minute chart as a sort of trampoline to get some confidence going out of the bulls to really bust that next level that we're struggling with, which we will talk about on the daily chart. Bears, You know, that level is your enemy. So how do you avoid that level? Well, the way to do it on the 30-minute in particular is to break that back down beneath that 50 period and get that 50 period in a descending trend line yet again. Whereas currently it's flat and actually looking to be curling upside just a tad. Let's move on now to the 4-hour chart. You can see here that the levels that are really, you know, in play on the 4-hour specifically are at 23.90 and 24.25 approximately. So listen, for me, I'm watching the 4-hour. If it comes to it, we currently find ourselves, you know, kind of a ways out. We're about 5.5% from that 50 period. We've seen crazier things out of Palantir, don't get me wrong, but my primary concern before that is 23, again, which we'll talk about here. But if it comes to it, of course, I want to see a reclaim of those levels, because right now, you know, I don't care that they're crossing. I think that's overhyped. But for a stock to be really strong upside, I want to see really all 6 moving averages, the 2 on the daily, the 2 on the 4-hour, and the 2 on the 30-minute, all kind of trending upside with the stock above all 6 of them. That's a real sign of strength. And you have to go chart by chart, and here we're just not there yet on Palantir. But the primary concern, since this video is geared more toward tomorrow, is the daily chart. You know, because there's 2 really important things going on the daily. Please don't ignore this. This is a really big deal. Two big things. Can you tell me what they are? I bet most of you can. And if you can't, it's cool. We'll talk about it, right? 23 bucks is a huge level. The last 3 trading days or so, we have struggled with that area, heading into and at $23 a share. I want to see 23 reclaim. Okay, but on the daily now also still, we basically got rejected off the 50-day moving average. Right? I mean, you see that white line, that's the 50-day. That is probably the most popular indicator sitting here on the most popular time frame, the daily. So listen, bears, 2 things. Any retest of 23, reject on as much volume as possible. Also, bears, really, ideally, hold beneath that 50-day. And if you guys could reject off the 50-day, like we've been rejecting off 23, if you're a bear, that's even better, because you really haven't rejected hard off the 50-day yet. All right, we're kind of just sitting right on top of it. Bulls, priority number 1, reclaim the 50. We're below it. That's a struggle. That's beefing up 23 as a potential resistance. If we can reclaim the 50, we can get an honest chance at 23. Best case scenario for bulls tomorrow, a high volume break above both of those levels, a retest of whichever one's higher at the time, likely 23. I don't expect the 50-day to move above 23 in a single day, though it certainly could. But getting above both of those levels on big volume, a low volume retest, showing that a very small sample size of market participants are willing to make that bet, and then boom, a high volume bounce. That would be a power move out of the bulls. That all occurring in a single day would be a great day's work, in my opinion, if you're a bull. Now, expected move. Let's take a look at the market's volatility expectation, and then we'll take a look at the directional bias here. So the next expiration we have is Friday at the close. The expectation out of stock price movement by Friday at the close is plus or minus 71 cents per share. Okay, so we're talking about 35 cents per share plus or minus per day if we divide by Thursday and Friday. Okay, 2 trading days, right? But now that we have 2 trading days left, what I like to do is I like to think about that and say, okay, so the market's expecting, if we see 2 green days in a row or 2 red days in a row, it's expecting maybe about 35 cents of movement per day. But I like to add a range where I add the top end of about maybe 50% to that, okay, which puts us at, somewhere around 52 cents, because you have to add on a little expected volatility if we see a mix, like a green day and a red day, because you have to make up for the other one. But it's safe to say here that compared to today, the market's expecting more volatility than we saw today over the next 2 days. But that's the market's expectation. Now, if you look at that and you're like, I think it's going to be lower, you have to consider that with your options positioning. If you look at that and you think it's going to be higher, consider that, right? Because options are very impacted by expected volatility compared to realized volatility. And that can help you make money. And it can also cause you to lose money if you ignore it. Now, last thing we can do here, let's take a look at the options directional bias. 204,000 total contracts traded, 115,600 calls, 88,500 puts approximately. So we are seeing a bit of a call side bias on the overall ratio. Honestly though, guys, not nearly as much as we've seen in the past. We've seen Palantir, doubling, tripling up. This is just a slight call side bias, so it's not as crazy as we have seen in the recent past. And this is actually something to be aware of because we haven't seen this very much at all recently on Palantir. In the 0 to 20 delta range, the short-term speculator category, we're seeing 35,500 calls and 40,300 puts. We're actually seeing that flip here occur today. We'll see how this plays out tomorrow, but we're seeing a small, it's not overwhelming, okay, but a small put side bias actually flipping here today on the 0 to 20 short-term better category. Short-term better, like short-term speculator, like bets being placed. That's really interesting. Again, it's one factor of many, but just consider that flip here today. Listen, again, guys, don't forget the new schedule starts tomorrow. Palantir videos will be out every day the market's open at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's an hour and a half after the market closes. Wherever you are in the world, please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're a fan of the stock. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.